All right. Hi, everybody. I am Alice from Kinesiologusts. We are just going to wait a few minutes to let everyone join in. I've got about 40 odd people who have registered, so this just might take a couple of minutes. Okay, what we got time was 7. All right. Cool. I can see some people coming in that joined yesterday and got some new faces too, so that's awesome. A few other therapists as well. That's pretty cool. All right, Genevieve, did you get in? Had a couple of people last night having a couple of issues getting in, so I'll just give it another few minutes and then we shall get started. Chat here. Okay, so someone has said that yesterday they got disconnected from the call. I've actually uploaded the video to my YouTube channel as it happens last night. So what you can do is either just Google Kinesiologusts YouTube, because I haven't got enough subscribers yet to get a special name for mine, so I've got some weird link for it. And obviously it will come up that way. The other option is to go to my Facebook page, and I posted the link there last night, so you can get into it that way. Genevieve, you are in. Okay, cool. All right, I'll just wait another minute and then we'll get going. That's nice. People are saying hello. Broken out. All right. Okay, so thank you everyone for joining. What I will let you know first is that I am actually going to record this webinar, so there is a small chance that you could be videoed. Most of you have got your video off, but if that is an issue for you, I just thought I would give you an opportunity to turn your video off. I don't think it generally captures anyone, but you know, it's always good to know that. Secondly, I have got you all muted. So if you do have any questions, stick them in the chat box. If you don't know where the chat box is, if you actually hover somewhere over the bottom of your screen, you should get a little chat box and a couple of other options pop up. So I will try and address questions going through if I see them, but I did find that doesn't work particularly well when I'm presenting a screen. So what I would like to do is, you know, get through the content as much as I can, and then allow a little bit of time at the end for questions. Does anyone have any questions yet? Okay, cool. It looks like we have got everyone in at the moment. Okay, so, all right, I am recording. Okay, cool. So, hello everybody. I am Alice from Kinesiologusts, and I am going to be talking to you tonight about anxiety, which you obviously know because that is what you registered for. So I'm just going to start sharing my screen, and which one have we got? This one, and alrighty, there we go. Okay, so can everybody see the screen? Let me know if you can't. Looks like we are doing okay there. All right, so for those who attended last night, as I said last night, the structure is going to be much the same. So I actually like this little quote by the Buddha here, which is, do not dwell in the past, do not dream of the future, concentrate the mind on the present moment. That particular quote is particularly relevant to people with anxiety. I just want you to keep that in mind as we go through the talk, because you will actually see why I think that quote is particularly relevant. Okay, so what we're going to talk obviously about is anxiety and what it is in Chinese medicine, what the root causes of anxiety are in Chinese medicine, signs that we look for in clinic, obviously why anxiety is a problem for us, and then I've got some practical tools and tips for you to use that you will actually be able to take away tonight and use today or tomorrow. None of them cost anything, and they're all little things that you can put in your little bag of tricks or your toolbox, whatever you'd like to call it, so that you can try different things at different times. Any advice that I give is general in nature and does not replace any advice given to you by a medical practitioner, particularly with medication. What I will do is address that now. If you are on medication, please do not stop taking medication without the advice and support of your doctor. So that can end quite badly for you. So that's a particularly important point. Okay, moving on. Okay, so about me, I'm obviously Alice. I am a wife. I've been married for just about 20 years now. I'm a mother of 2 kids. One is 15 and the other one is 12. I'm obviously a kinesiologist. I'm also a mind-body medicine therapist and an integrative complementary medicine therapist, which are all just lots of words to say that my job is to interpret what your body's trying to help you and to help you remove stress, because that's really that's the root cause of everything. We look for things to be in balance. So, you know, not too much, not too little, kind of like Goldilocks, just right. And when everything's working nicely, everything works nicely. But when it isn't working so well, that's when we start seeing patterns of stress, and that shows us where things are out of balance, which Chinese medicine is very good at showing us those things and what we need to do about it. I'm also a mentor and coach for natural therapists who come out of their respective colleges and suffer from a little bit of imposter syndrome, like all of us do at some point in our lives. I'm also a speaker. I'm an author. I facilitate workshops and I provide corporate wellness as well. So lots of little bits and pieces that I do. Okay, so what is anxiety in Chinese medicine? Now, I want to say up front that when you can obviously see what I'm about to say, but that does not mean that it negates in any way. If you are suffering from anxiety, it does not negate in any way that you are suffering from, you know, the thing that you have is not real, or it's in your head, because I know a lot of people get told that with anxiety, that it's in their head. So but in Chinese medicine, anxiety actually isn't a condition in the way that they describe things. It's actually a symptom of fear or overthinking. So we would call it a symptom of, well, basically water or earth, because we work in this concept called the 5 elements, that's a whole nother presentation that I need to do. So basically, you see, I guess, 2 types of anxiety. So the people that think their way into things, and there are the people that automatically feel the fear. So what I also see sometimes is perfectionism. So that looks, on the surface, that looks like anxiety, but in Chinese medicine, it's a different root cause, which is why I like to separate it out. For people who are prone to perfectionism, they can very well be diagnosed with anxiety, but in the space of what we do, it's just a different approach to it. So and this little quote here, so though if you can't read it, I'll just read it out just in case. Those with anxiety often start to focus too much on how they feel and their worries about the future. Each day becomes trying to live with the anxiety instead of trying to live in general. So, and I know that anxiety is actually all-consuming for people. So it's terrible. And that's why I wanted to do this talk tonight, because so many people suffer from it these days. So learning to embrace the idea that you have anxiety and trying to live a great and exciting life anyway is important. So I guess in Western medicine, once you're diagnosed with anxiety, that's it. You've just got to learn to manage it for the rest of your life. In Chinese medicine and kinesiology, a little bit of a different approach, in the fact that if we can get to the root cause, the fear or the overthinking, or in some cases the perfectionism, if we can get that resolved, we can get the anxiety resolved. So I have a confession. I have never particularly been someone to suffer from anxiety throughout the course of my life. I would say I'm a bit of an overthinker sometimes, but the true anxiety, and obviously the things that I see that people bring into clinic, wasn't something I particularly understood until last year. And my daughter, she's wanting to be a performer when she grows up, and she got to the final round of the Billy Elliot auditions last year, and we had to wait a month to see. She was in the running for one of the 3 girls who were cast as Debbie for Billy Elliot, and I felt sick. I was butterflies in my stomach. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't concentrate. And I had no idea, being a therapist, I had no idea what was wrong. And then it finally dawned on me, but that this was what anxiety was really like. And I went, wow. So I obviously had to work through that sort of thing, because I obviously couldn't control the outcome. And as it turned out, she didn't get the role. But yeah, I actually had to work through the sorts of things that I help people with in clinic. But it wasn't actually until I realised that I had anxiety that I was actually capable of doing anything about it. So, but in the end, that was actually a really good thing, because it gave me a really good insight into what people are feeling. So I think that it's actually been a good experience for me, because it's made me better able, I think, to help people with it. Okay, so the root causes of anxiety. So people who are anxious spend a lot of time in their head. They think a lot. So, and the problem with that is we don't listen to our bodies anymore. So we're aware of the feelings and stuff that go on, but we're not actually listening to what our body is trying to tell us. And that's where kinesiology comes in, because it's my job to interpret what your body's telling you and helping you to connect with that. It's smarter than we know. As I was talking about last night, you know, the body has this innate wisdom and healing ability. So a really good example of that is cutting your hand. It bleeds, and then it heals. So we don't have to tell the body to do that in general. It just does it. So it really does have this innate wisdom to actually solve its own problems. We just sometimes, when things get too far out of balance, that's when we need help. Okay, so root causes of anxiety, and some of this you will know, some of it you may not, but I thought it would be good to go through it. So sometimes it's nutrition and absorption. So what do I mean by that? Sometimes it is eating too much processed food, which is, you know, nutritionally void. I don't need to tell you that. I'm quite sure you know that. But yeah, if we do have a diet that is too heavy in processed food, that can actually cause anxiety because your body is not getting the nutrients that it needs to function. So, and it actually is quite hard on the body. The body has to work very hard to process, ironically, the processed food into something that it can actually use, because all those nutrients help to create hormones and neurotransmitters and chemicals and reactions and all sorts of things in the body. So if we're not giving it the things that it needs to do that, then it really does struggle to function. Other things that can cause, and I will come back to actually, I'll come back to that on the next slide. Other things that can cause nutritionally anxiety, if you are low in B vitamins, if you are low in iron, iodine, vitamin D, selenium, magnesium. Magnesium is a big one. I think magnesium is particularly underutilized in life. It's very, very important. And also omega-3 fatty acids. So if you have deficiencies in any of those, that's enough to cause anxiety. So they're things that are worth getting checked out. And I don't mean just go to the chemist and buy the things. It's important to understand, because all of the vitamins and minerals interact with each other. So by taking one thing, you can put something else out of balance. So it is good to have blood tests with your doctor, or else see a naturopath or someone like me to work out what's going on there. Now, you can have the perfect diet and you can still have anxiety. So sometimes it's about actually being able to absorb the nutrients. That could be something like leaky gut. We're probably aware of that, or what's called intestinal permeability, which just basically means that, you know, things don't that toxins don't leave your body as easily as they should. So sometimes we're just, from a Chinese medicine perspective, not able to absorb the nutrients. So that is also something that we can look at. Sometimes it's your thyroid or adrenals. If it's either of those things, that tells me very much that you are stressed. So they negatively impact each other. Thyroid conditions actually relatively often have an iodine issue going on with them as well. So that sort of thing's worth looking at. These things with anxiety, they are definitely worth looking at. They may not be the problem, they may be, and they may be a contributing factor, but it's important to, you know, check everything. It's not just what I guess you would call a mental health issue all the time. However, sometimes it is. It is thoughts or emotional patterns or beliefs. So if you are someone that is prone to overthinking, we all know that we can think our way into things that aren't necessarily the case. And sometimes it's a fear pattern. So that's the part where it can be what we would consider in Western medicine to be a mental health issue. But the thing with mind-body medicine, Chinese medicine, kinesiology, is that we look at the whole. So it's not just the mental health, it's the body as well. It's not just the body, it's the mental health as well. And it also comes into what we call spiritual, the spiritual body as well. So coming to that, sometimes it's what we call Shen disturbance. In Chinese medicine, the Shen is the heart spirit. So, you know, it keeps us going. It wanders the body during the day. It's supposed to rest at night time. And when there's an imbalance in the way that it does that, if it, runs too fast, or if it is running around the body when it shouldn't be, that is sometimes a cause of anxiety. And energetically, if you're not aware of chakras, they are energy centers at particular parts of your body, and if they have a certain balance of their own, and if they aren't in balance, that can cause anxiety itself. So I'll come to that a little bit more in a minute, and I'll just keep track of time because I do have a tendency to talk a lot. Okay. Now, if you're on the call last night, you would have seen this slide last night because it applies literally to every condition I see. So anxiety, if you have anxiety, you know that it affects you on every level. So things that it will affect, it affects you physically, it can affect your breathing, it can affect your thoughts, it can affect actions, all that sort of stuff. But basically, when we see the stress as anxiety, and that affects our nervous system, and our nervous system is our brain and our spinal cord basically, and if you actually think about that, that controls everything in your body. So once we get the stress or the anxiety affecting the nervous system, it affects everything. It affects your emotions, thoughts and beliefs. It affects your muscles, your endocrine system, hormones, your immune system, digestive, and also the energetic. So the stress can come in through one of those things, and because that then affects your nervous system, it starts to affect everything. So the energetic system, I'll explain a little bit more now. It's the way I always describe it is, you can almost feel someone touching you, or so I feel like, I guess, heat, or you just, you can feel something. Or there's someone standing behind you. So that's considered to be your energetic body, and that energetic body is considered to extend up to 1 meter from your body. So as people get closer to you, you can sort of feel them getting closer to you, and that's actually where your energy is being affected. So we do have energy though, externally to our physical body, and also internally. Okay, now the thing is, we get a two-way street thing happening. So for example, let's say that our anxiety is an overthinking sort of thing. So we get our thoughts here. I actually don't know if anyone else can see my cursor moving, but let's say it affects our thoughts. So then it affects our nervous system. And then it heads out into the emotions and beliefs. It heads out into the energetic body, the muscles, the hormones, immune, digestive stuff. And those things are actually a two-way street. So once those things started getting affected, they then affect the nervous system, and then that will affect other things, which will also affect the nervous system. So obviously you can see how when we have a problem like this, it grows and grows and grows until we find something to help us to manage or resolve the issue that we had. But all conditions that we see in Chinese medicine, or all issues we see, are basically a stress pattern. It really is that simple. So, so I will give you, just in case you don't necessarily recognize the symptoms of anxiety, maybe that's in yourself or someone you care about, I'll just sort of go through them a little bit. I just need to move my little screen. How do I move that? There we go. Okay, so the mind, as we've talked about, it affects our emotions, thoughts and beliefs. So we get thought disturbance. For some people, we get panic. Panic attacks are terrifying. If you haven't had one, they really are terrifying. A lot of people believe that A, they're dying, or B, they're having a heart attack, or both of those things. We can get obsessive compulsive behaviors, it's really about controlling your environment in order for you to feel safe. So that would be something I'd see more with a fear-based anxiety. Fears and phobias. I've actually just been working with a young lady who had phobias about her pet's feces, causing severe issues for her. So, and that actually got to the point where she couldn't interact with her pets at all. So we have worked through that. Unfortunately, we managed to get through that before COVID hit. So overwhelm, just everything piling in on top of you. So that's something that I see very often. And what I actually did forget to tell you is at some points, people with anxiety make up 50% of my clinic. It is so common. So if you are someone struggling with anxiety and you feel like you're alone, you really aren't. So many people have anxiety. So the other thing, people have difficulty concentrating. Because it affects our nervous system, which triggers our fight flight basically, and it makes us scan for danger all the time. So it does make it very difficult for us to focus on what we're doing. Other things that I just had a little bit of a look on one of the main mental health websites today. They talk about anticipating danger, which we've talked about a little bit, feeling inadequate, feeling like a failure, and worrying. We all know that. Okay, body, what do I see? I see people with sleep disturbance. Typically, people with an overthinking anxiety will have trouble going to sleep. They will lie awake for hours before they go to sleep. Whereas a fear-based anxiety, not necessarily so much trouble going to sleep, but they will wake a lot during the night. They sleep very lightly, and any noise will wake them up. Sorry, I've got my sunglasses holding my hair back. Digestive complaints. Irritable bowel syndrome usually tells me something about anxiety. Indigestion, gas, bloating, those sorts of things. So people often feel sick and nauseous and things like that. They will have hormonal issues, and I usually will see that in periods, sometimes with thyroid issues, as we were talking about before. Their immune system gets affected. So you keep putting stress on your immune system, and your immune system can only cope so far, basically. You can get hot flushes that are separate to menopause. So a lot of people do tend to get hot flushes at night time, which is obviously a common menopause symptom, but when it's outside of menopause, that's a consideration as well. And heart palpitations. That's quite common. So people will be trembly, they'll be jumpy and shaky. Chest pain, not necessarily just to do with the heart, but sometimes that can be mistaken for a heart attack. However, if you do believe you are having a heart attack, please seek medical attention. So, and if you're not sure, seek medical attention anyway. Actually, no, that sort of describes this next thing. And the other thing with digestive stuff, low appetite or binge eating, both of those are quite common. So a lot of people will eat to try and settle the nerves or the butterflies going on in their stomach. Other people can't, they just can't stomach anything. So now, soul or spiritual wise, again, the unpleasant feelings, too much noise in the head, too much energy in the head. Sometimes their balance can be affected, and people often come in wired. So, and other times they might describe feeling detached or not real or things like that. So I wanted to put those symptoms basically into the mind, body and soul categories, so you can sort of see how we look at that in Chinese medicine, and then we can work out what to work with basically. Okay, so how does kinesiology help with this? Last night I did do a talk on the benefits of kinesiology, which explains a lot more about how it works. But basically, kinesiology is both a body therapy and an energy therapy, which is why we can actually do it online as well as face-to-face, which has been really helpful for people in the current climate. Excuse me, I thought I was going to cough then. We use the body's muscles to find out the stresses and imbalances in the body. We also tap into the energy, which is how we can do it online, to find the stresses and imbalances. So The way that we will find that out, firstly, we'll talk to you about it. We ask lots of questions. Anyone who's been to see me will know that. I ask, I think, 5 pages worth of questions. And so I can find all of those signs and symptoms so that I can work out the root cause of that. So, and also then I go through that. Once we've worked out the root cause, then I get you, and I think this is really, really important, get you to connect with what your body's telling you and why it's telling you that. Because I think half of the healing benefit of any therapy is you understanding what your body is trying to tell you. It's all very well and good for me to know the answers, but if you don't connect with it, then how can you possibly help yourself, which is what kinesiology is all about. It's not about me fixing you. It's actually about me helping your body to facilitate its own healing, because like I was saying before, the body has innate healing wisdom. So we just tap into that basically. Then we actually use what we would say is the kinesiology. So communicating with your body. We might touch acupressure points. Is this stressful? Yes. Okay, well, this point means that let's go with feeling disconnected from your own emotions. So how does that feed into the anxiety for you? We might look at the chakras. Okay, so this chakra is out of balance. That's the brow chakra. That's about overthinking. How is that affecting you? So people don't always recognize the overthinking because they're so used to it. We might look at hormones and neurotransmitters and the signs and symptoms, put things on your body and work out the stress patterns that way. And also use muscles that are associated with the elements that control anxiety. So like I was saying before, in general, that is water and earth elements. So we look at certain muscles that belong with that. And then the idea is to bring up the stress. So I guess in that regard, it's a little bit like the psychology. You go to a psychologist, as I have done, and you talk about stuff and bring it all up. And then what we do in kinesiology is actually help the body to move it on. So how do we do that? We use acupressure, which is, it's acupuncture, but no needles. It's basically about holding points on the body. Online, we might get you to do that, and we might actually hold them ourselves because we have tapped into your energy, obviously with your permission. We use essential oils. They actually, for me, what I find they help with is actually speeding up the process of the acupressure point balancing itself. What I feel with an acupressure point is like a pounding, then it disappears, and then it's sort of, I'm waiting for it to even out between the two. It really is a Goldilocks process, isn't it? So that's not occurred to me till this week. You can use oils in other ways as well. Please do not ingest the oils, and please always dilute them. We can use crystals. So I've got a few here. Now, crystals, I was explaining last night, they have a vibrational energy in them, which we also have. Unlike us, they don't have a brain, so they're not worrying about stuff. So they just go and do their own thing. Sounds pretty cool, huh? So what you can do is use those crystals on yourself, or we use them in clinic to help your body to vibrate to the energy of that crystal. And there's a few of them that are particularly useful for anxiety, so to help with the fear or overthinking sorts of things. Sometimes we might use sound. I actually had a sound healing today with a friend of mine who was learning it. It was really cool. So for example, this is an elfin harmonic, so we might use that and wave it around you. What that does is it's also a vibrational energy, so it does help with the energy in your body. What I didn't tell you with the acupressure is that actually accesses the energy within your body. It affects the flow of chi, or energy, vital force, life force in your body, and also blood flow. So what else do we do? Cards. I remember my teacher telling me about cards, so like they, oracle type cards, I guess. He had a guy come in once and he had these fairy cards And the guy walked in and said, oh, you're not going to be using those on me. And my teacher, he goes, okay, no worries. And as it turned out, those cards were particularly important to him. By that stage, the guy was comfortable enough to go with it and pulled out a card, and it was really, really relevant to what was going on for him. So let's see, let's pull out a card that is relevant to oh, this won't be a nice one. So this particular card is about liberated. So I might muscle test your body and find that your anxiety has something to do with not feeling liberated, feeling stuck and constrained. So what I would usually do is either discuss the card, put it on you, maybe talk about the picture. So this has got a lady who is feeling free and liberated. So there's many different ways of doing that. And the thing with the way that kinesiology works is it's not about me making the decisions. It's actually about your body telling me what it wants. So we work that out through what we call finger modes. There's all different points on the fingers that mean particular things. So, and we just ask your body, you know, does it want this? Yes, so no or yes, basically. We will also look at nutrition. Some of us are qualified to provide supplements and some of us are not, and that's okay either way. We can either refer you on to a naturopath or send you off to obviously a health food store with a naturopath in there. We can talk to you about nutrition. So if you're needing some help with your diet, and we can work through more tailored stuff. It's not just, you know, go home and eat carrots and you'll be fine. So it is, you know, okay, well, you're not getting enough omega-3 fatty acids. Here's a way for you to find it. So, or do you need more B vitamins? The answer almost always is green leafy vegetables, by the way, but okay. We also use muscle movement. So like I was saying before, the muscles are associated with particular elements in the body. So we might use muscles in particular ways to help shift the stress on. Essences, flower essences, crystal essences, gem essences, I've seen shell essences. So they're actually quite surprisingly good at just dissolving stuff in the body. I remember once, if you haven't heard of Tribe of the Tree essences, you should actually check those out. There was one called Baggage Buster, and I actually was doing a course and I thought, oh, I might try this Baggage Buster. I tell you what, up until COVID, mind you, I have never got rid of so much stuff out of my house in one hit. Tissue salts. Tissue salts are about the 12 essential salts in the body. So the things like magnesium, phosphorus, silica, sodium, potassium, those sorts of things. And we can actually use salt therapy to help balance your body and shift the anxiety for you. And then we always give home reinforcement, or homework. What that's about is we get, like, for example, I work in 90-minute blocks, which we can talk about later if anyone wants to know more about that. But I have 90 minutes with you. I might see you in 3 or 4 weeks' time, and there are lots of 90-minute blocks between now and then. So we can shift what we can in clinic, but basically if you go home and keep doing what you're doing, things are not going to change for you. Or won't change enormously for you. So because you're not reinforcing it at home, because a lot of the time what's going on for you, even though it could be that, you know, an acupressure point is out of balance and that needs a little bit of help, the question is why. And it's usually about the way that we're living our lives. So if you are someone that a fear-based anxiety that chooses not to leave the house unless you are absolutely sure that everything is going to be safe for you. You will only go places that you're familiar with or with someone or that sort of thing. Then that just reinforces that stress in your body, if that makes sense. So what we do is get you to change a few things in your life. And I'm not saying overhaul your life. I never give people lots of stuff. What I want you to do is make changes that are small and achievable, basically, and usually quite simple. So let's get on to that then. Actually, no, let's talk about what people feel in clinic first. I should know my slides by now. Okay, so people generally report feeling relaxed and light after a session, and most of the time when they get off the bed. Sometimes they don't. It can take 24 to 36 hours to process through, but they generally report like a weight's been lifted off them. They feel calmer, they feel more relaxed, because anxiety is stressful. So taking that away, you know, it's great. They sometimes will feel body sensations while they're working on them. It might be a zinging or a fluttering or some sort of sensation in their body. If you feel that within a session, that's okay. If you're uncomfortable with it, tell your practitioner. But if you don't feel anything, that's also okay too. Everyone's experience is different. So, and your experience is obviously personal to you and what your body needs. What do people generally feel? They feel better. And that's what we all want. We always go seeking help because we want to feel better. So that's what it's all about. When we don't feel good, we don't like it. We want to feel better. And often people forget about some of their symptoms because they just went away. And sometimes it can be the core reason why they came to see me too. But it just, you know, it goes away. And then, you know, because it's not a problem for us, we forget about it. And that's great. Very rarely, but sometimes you can feel worse, and that can last for a few days after a session, and what we call that is a healing crisis. People that are quite sensitive, I guess, are a little bit more prone to it. Don't be afraid of that. What my teacher used to say to me is any change is a good change. I certainly don't aim to make you feel worse, but it's also not fair for me to not tell you that could happen, because otherwise you go away thinking that, oh, what happened? I don't really know. You know, that didn't really work for me because I feel worse than I did. But what I encourage you to do is, if that happens to you, contact your practitioner and have a chat with them. So sometimes it just needs a little bit more, and sometimes just talking about it and acknowledging the way you feel can actually be what you need. So often we try to push away what we don't like, and there is sometimes great healing power in sitting in that uncomfortableness, so which is interesting. Okay, now tips from me, and if you saw my talk last night, these tips are exactly the same, but I do have some more on the next page. So grounding yourself, because people with anxiety usually spend a lot of time in their head, going outside and getting your feet on the grass is about the best thing you can do to get out of your head. You probably don't want to do it now it's dark, and you probably don't want to do it at 6 o'clock in the morning when it's freezing, but if that appeals to you, go for it. You can also get a little bit of an extra benefit for anxiety with getting the sun on your back, and also getting into the sunlight helps with vitamin D. So I often will tell people to take their cup of tea or coffee. Don't drink huge amounts of coffee, by the way, because that will not help. And, you know, stand in the sun, feet on the grass. You're doing 3 things at once then. You're having your coffee, you're getting some beautiful vitamin D and some energy benefit from the sun, and you're grounding yourself. It's a really great way to start your day. Getting moving. And I don't mean busy, fussy, restless moving. I mean, you know, going for a walk, taking time to smell the roses. So you don't have to make it a power walk or anything like that, just to wander around and notice the things that are around you. So again, it's about getting out of your head and out of your thoughts, yeah? Meditation. People with anxiety tend to struggle with this more than most. The idea for meditation is to find the space between your thoughts. So once you have more ability to control your mind, then the ability for anxiety to control you reduces. So you don't need to do hours. You don't need to sit on a rock in the lotus position in your Buddhist orange robes, although you can if you want to. It's about finding a way to fit it into your life that works for you. There's lots of apps, there's lots of YouTube videos, there's Deepak Chopra actually runs a meditation challenge relatively often. There's apps like Insight Timer, Relax Melodies. That one is not free, but I really like it. There is Headspace, Calm, Breathe. There's lots and lots of options. So the idea is to find something that works for you. You will get thoughts coming in, you will get distracted, you will wander off into your own little whatever you're thinking about. That doesn't mean the meditation's not working. What you're needing to do is just retrain your brain. So when you catch yourself doing that, then acknowledge that and come back to what you're doing. You hear a dog barking? Okay, sweet, dog's barking. Back to my breathing, back to the guided meditation voice, or back to the music. You catch yourself wandering off, same thing. All right, well, that can wait till later because your brain will decide that's a good time to download all those things you need to do. Come back to your breathing, come back to your voice, and come back to your music. The important thing is to find a meditation that works for you. I said last night, there's a website called beyondthemind.com. Go to the videos there and go to the second video and try that meditation. That's the first one that ever worked for me. And I think that works quite well for people with anxiety because it actually does have a little bit of movement within the meditation. So you sort of do some affirmations and hold particular parts of your body, and that can be quite effective. And this break your thought cycle. I think it comes from CBD and psychology, but it's basically 5 things I see, 5 things I hear, 5 things I feel. So you just look around, 5 things I can see in my room, 5 things I can hear. I'm not going to go through this exercise today because I want to go through another one if we've got enough time. And 5 things I feel. Important with that, it's not how you emotionally feel, it's what you physically feel. I physically feel headphones on my ears, I physically feel my shirt on my shoulders, that sort of stuff. Okay, moving on to the next page. I'm going to jump around a little bit on this. I think I'll start with the sensory box. So fiddling, it's really good for controlling anxiety and helping to ground and anchor yourself as well. So if you can create some sort of sensory items, fidget cubes are really cool. Sand, like kinetic sand, because you can actually squish that. If you haven't seen it, you can squish it into shapes and crumble it up. It's not bad stuff. Play-Doh is another variation. Some people don't like sand. Squishy balls, slime. If you've got kids, I'm quite sure they know how to make slime. A calm down jar, that's actually a pretty cool thing. And you can actually use the calm down jar in conjunction with the breathing exercises. So if you've got a little box of tricks, basically, that's a good way to help to break cycles for you. With the breathing, when we are stressed, we shallow breathe. And when we shallow breathe, we actually trigger anxiety in our body because we lower our oxygen levels. So it's stressful. If you've ever watched any type of medical program, you will know that, you know, oxygen levels or oxygen saturation in the blood is particularly important. So being able to control your breathing is an excellent tool. However, telling people to take a deep breath usually doesn't work for them. So what we can do, there's a couple of there's breathing exercises that you can Google and find in a lot of meditation apps and things like that. But a couple that I just wanted to explain to you, one's called what I call diamond breathing. And it's basically, if you imagine a diamond, so you breathe in for 4, hold for 4, breathe out for 4, and hold for 4. Now, some people do find that particularly stressful, particularly if they have a lung disorder or an asthma or something like that. So another one that works quite well for people is what what I call that circle breathing. But it's basically breathing in for 4, and out for 8. And the idea with that is to basically breathe out longer than you breathe in. But because also you're counting, what you're doing is breaking your thought cycle as well. The other one, I might go to the stress release points next. This one I teach all the time, all the time. So people grab their forehead when they're stressed. Oh my God. And the reason that they do that is because they're actually instinctively trying to help themselves. So there's a couple of acupressure points on your body, on your forehead. Now, if you're looking straight ahead, it's in the middle of your eyes and about 1/3 of the way up your forehead. So not too far in, not too far out, right in the middle. If you're not sure, you can always just hold your forehead like this. You could implement your breathing exercises with that. You could try your 5 things I see exercise with that, or you can literally just sit or lie there holding those points. Now, if you hold those for a few minutes, you will feel better. So what they do, they're a calming exercise. They're about obviously releasing emotional stress. They also help you if you're stuck in something and you can't think. They do actually help you to process through. And the other thing that they do, when we are very stressed, our brain stops working efficiently and thought and reasoning is a bit of a problem. And these points also have an added benefit because they're right over the frontal lobe. They activate the frontal lobe, which helps your brain to start, working again. Some people have described that they can feel their brain click back into gear. So that's another one that you can try. You can actually try that at night time if you're having trouble sleeping as well. It's not a bad one. Now, the last one, what I find a lot of the time, people with anxiety tend to have a little bit of trouble saying no. So, which I see as a boundary issue. So you don't know where you end and where other people begin. So you can get taken advantage of, basically. So it's not a brick wall, it's a boundary. So what I will do, and I've used this for kids who are being bullied, I've used it for adults that do have trouble saying no, people who need to protect their energy from other people, I use this myself. And it's basically, if you'd like to try this, is if you imagine sitting, and whatever this thing that's stressful for you, it might be what people are saying to you, it might be where you don't feel like you can say no or whatever. Now, if you imagine that stress coming towards you, I guess like an arrow, and it hits you and it hurts, right? Now, if you imagine being in a bubble or your own, it's basically about finding your own personal space. I'm a bit of a Harry Potter nerd, so the invisibility cloak works really well for me. And what you do is just spend a few seconds imagining you're in this bubble or under the cloak or whatever that might be with you, and it's movable and it's shapeable, but it's just your own space. And then see those negative things coming towards you and just bouncing off. Not my problem. So little kids will often imagine that they're whatever the latest superhero is that's popular. I think it's Batman at the moment. Sometimes little girls will imagine unicorns. I guess that's being very generalistic, but that's what I see. And a lot of people will imagine they're in like a bubble or a white light or something like that. But it's about what's important to you, what works for you. So don't stress too much if you can't get that. That just might mean you need a little bit more of a support to work out what that boundary is. But yeah, I do encourage you to give that one a go. One of the sayings that I use, actually this particular client had quite severe anxiety, not my circus, not my monkeys. So, and she would actually just imagine that she was in her own little circus tent. So, so there's all different ways to do that. Okay, so those particular tips are things, all of them don't cost anything, and all of them are things that you can implement in general right now. So, grounding yourself, going for a walk, meditation, breaking your thought cycle with that 5 things I see, the boundary exercise, sensory box, the breathing exercises, and those emotional stress release points. So they're all things that you can add to your toolkit right now to help you with managing your anxiety. And those are things that I always give to people for homework or home reinforcement to help you with managing while we work out getting rid of it, basically. Okay. All right, so if you'd like to get in touch with me, you can obviously look up my website. You can email me there. That's my phone number, and you can find me on all the socials as Kinesiologusts. Okay, now what I'm going to do is actually stop sharing the screen for a second and stop the recording, and then we'll get into some questions.